Welcome back, my friends, to the ChompCast. I am Jake. This is JARCHAMP Collectibles. I'm here with my dear friend
Bryson.
Bryson. On Instagram, you can find him at PokePack Daily. We'll make sure we put that in the description here. Bryson is one of my dearest friends, and we have known each other for many years now. And so maybe that's where we should start and kind of dive in, kind of get a background of how we met and have been crossing paths in different ways at different times for years now, and then kind of discovered that we both love collecting Pokemon. So maybe from your perspective, how did we meet, Bryson?
So I remember having classes with you, and that was more just in passing.
Yeah.
And then we went to church together.
That's right.
But my biggest connecting moment with you was one snowy day, because we used to take the shuttle bus to school that's next to our apartments.
Yes.
And I remember that because it was so snowy that day, the buses weren't operating, but we needed to get home.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I guess we could just walk home. It's close enough. And mind you, this is 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, we're in Utah. It's winter. Yeah, it's so snowy that the bus isn't working.
Yes.
And for that to be the case in Utah, it's really snowing.
Yeah. And I realized, okay, I'm going to have to trek home. But it's nice to do it with a friend, you know, somebody I kind of had a class with, and I got to start asking you some questions.
Yeah.
But I started getting out of breath because I realized how fast you were trekking through the snow.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you trekking through this so easily? And you're like, oh, well, I lived in Russia.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, that makes it unfair, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember that being kind of like a bonding, connecting moment that we originally had. And then, you know, then we continued kind of our lives. We never talked about Pokemon. I think we talked more about like international relations and politics.
Yeah, because my degree was in political science and yours was international relations, right? And so we had a lot of classes together in college. And then, we both kind of ended up living in the same neighborhood after we had gotten married. And so we went to church together in the same area. And then I honestly don't remember the exact moment that I kind of discovered that we both collected Pokemon. Do you?
I think it was a post that I had or you had.
Yeah.
Like COVID times, right?
Yeah.
And it was, and I want to say there was a post you had of you ripping like a base set pack with your brother, maybe?
Oh, we opened a fossil pack.
A fossil pack.
Yeah. That's like at the beginning of my Instagram feed. Yeah.
Yes. So I went and I saw that, and I also I think maybe in a story or something, and I think you might have even reached out to me one time, and then we just started going back and forth.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I used to teach 5th grade.
Right.
And which is like a perfect place to be if you like Pokemon.
Right. Yeah. 10-year-olds love Pokemon.
You can have just, you can have any cards and it's like, oh, I love that card. And I remember you helped supply some of the stuff I would incentivize students with in my classroom. And that was, I just loved coming together and having that cause.
Yeah, you'd come over here in the office and I, because back then I was still ripping a lot of packs. and so one of the things that I did is I didn't keep the bulk, but I would keep the reverse hollows and the hollows from sets like Evolving Skies and Brilliant Stars and Vivid Voltage and all that stuff that I was opening back then. Yeah, and you would come by, and I'd have like a box of like 800 cards, and get them to you for a really, really good price for the kids, and that was a lot of fun. It's cool to have those memories together, and then maybe a year ago now or so that I was still working in my corporate job, and you were toying with the idea of leaving education. You'd been teaching for how many years?
5 years.
5 years. So like you're pretty ingrained in the school system and everything. And you're toying with the idea of maybe getting a bit more flexibility in your work. And I was working at a tech job that was, right in the same area where we both lived. And so we talked about you coming and working at the same company. And then, you interviewed and got the job, which was awesome because, you're a shoo-in, you're really smart. And of course you were going to get the job. But that meant that we also got to see each other a lot more and talk about the newest sets coming out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then even a few times you came in and helped, and you still will, I'm sure, in the future, come and help me vend at some of the local shows.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was super fun because I could, go to the shows with you. And I remember one day we just left work at lunch.
Yeah,
we went
bye.
and we went and did a show. And then it's also nice because I kind of get a sneak peek at your inventory before the show opens.
That's right.
I can put it aside.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you get first pick at all the newest stuff. So really, really fond memories. And then maybe one more thing before we dive into what I want to talk about today, which, just for everyone who is watching, we're going to talk about, the perspective of the Pokemon hobby from someone who's a true collector and is not necessarily trying to make a business out of it and is trying to balance it with a job and family and responsibilities and everything. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, maybe one more question for you is tell me about, what you're working on collection-wise these days.
Yeah, so I have a favorite Pokemon, and it's Snorlax.
Yeah, nice.
And so this guy right here.
Yeah.
And so anything with Snorlax, I like to collect. And so it's been like singles and now some graded cards. And then, so that's a main one. I also have a Pikachu binder because I have to collect Pikachus. Mm-hmm. But my main thing that we do is it's called our family binder, and it's a Pokedex binder.
Okay.
And I have it here with me.
Nice.
I don't know if you want me to bust this thing out, but it's massive.
Yes. So what are you trying to do in that binder?
So we're trying to collect them all. That's what we're doing. We're getting one of every Pokemon.
Wow.
From, one all the way to, I think it's 1,025.
Yeah, there's over 1,000 now.
Yeah, I want to say it's Terrapagos. Is the last one?
For now.
Don't quote me on that. Yeah, we're waiting for the next one, and that's when it gets really exciting when a new generation releases. But in the meantime, there's been really cool arts that come out of all these, all these Pokemon that, you don't really think about sometimes. And so, for example, my daughter, we just opened the Journey Together pack.
Yeah.
And she pulled the Wailord.
No, I love that card.
And so we put that in the binder. And that is our Pokedex binder. We're collecting our favorite art of each, not necessarily the most expensive.
Right.
Just our favorite art, whether it's in the smaller frame or a full frame of that Pokemon and having it represented there.
So you bring up something that I absolutely love, which is you've found a way to collect with your kids.
Yes.
And you share that kind of that chase and that anticipation, and you can get excited about new sets or opportunities to go to a show and to find those cards together.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So I have a 5 and a 3 and a newborn baby.
Yeah.
It's 5 months. And it's kind of fun. Their birthdays are Halloween, November 1st and November 2nd. So like right in a row.
Party time in the holiday season.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's a great place to transition into, your personal experience collecting, right?
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this quite a bit. And, one of the things that you told me when you first got started into collecting was you started like most people. You got in and you were really, really excited about all the new sets, but then also looking back at some of the old sets and vintage cards, modern cards, you kind of wanted it all. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that. Tell me about how you got started and then maybe the first few months, kind of your approach to collecting Pokemon cards.
Yeah, so I think being a 5th grade teacher, you just naturally see kids pull out their binders and it ignites that nostalgia.
Yeah.
And so all the games, all the hours I put into the games and, and I never played a whole lot of the TCG, but my cousin did.
Okay.
So we would collect a few cards and sometimes I'd play with him. But he was more of the collector. I did more Yu-Gi-Oh growing up.
Okay.
But again, Pokemon was the game.
Yeah.
Right. Card trips, you make sure your Game Boy was charged or had the batteries if it's the color.
Yep.
Or advanced, I guess.
Yep. That's a must.
Yeah.
What was your favorite game as a kid that you remember playing? Emerald. Yeah. Oh, man.
So
of course.
That's my favorite. I love Rayquaza as well. And so logged a bunch of hours. And so you see these kids start bringing out, their cards. And you're like, okay, well, I have a salary.
Yeah. I make some money.
Yeah,
I could buy some of these.
And I go to the store and we start, occasionally buying things. And I think it was my wife had purchased a Fusion Strike pack and pulled a Full Art Mew.
Oh, great card with the blue background.
Yeah, so it wasn't like the alt art or anything. It was just like, the Full Art Mew. And we're like, wow, this is really cool. They've got some cool cards now. Yeah. And I've always been interested in card collecting, I would say. And then it just started kind of going from there. Yeah. And COVID happened. Yep. And all of that stuff, we were shut in. I wanted something to do. I also wanted something to connect with my students. And it got to a point real fast where I realized I was on Facebook Marketplace. I was on eBay just looking for any sort of deal I could get. Yeah. With no direction. It was just buy everything.
Collect it all.
Yeah. And you get to a point where you realize, okay, well, although I make a salary, money doesn't grow on trees. Right. So I can't keep buying the way that I'm buying. And so I had a real talk with my wife and said, you know what, we need to kind of tone it down a little. Yeah. I kind of grew up with an all or nothing kind of mindset.
Totally understand.
And that doesn't help when you're trying to collect cards because the reality is I can't get all of it.
Yeah. All is a lot. Not just thousands of cards, like many thousands of cards and millions of dollars would be all.
And the product too, like just even keeping it sealed. So like having a sealed product, which I didn't mention, but I also collect one pack of every set. Okay. That comes out now. I'm not going back. I'm not going to force myself to go back. Maybe if I can down the road, but so it gets to a point where we have to kind of discuss, okay, well, what are our priorities? Yeah. And it's kind of easy to realize my family's my priority. Right. Pokemon's a great hobby. At that time, my kids weren't collecting. They were still
too young. Yeah.
And my wife was great and supportive and said, well, it doesn't have to be nothing either.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Shout out Tracy.
And she encouraged me to still do what I love. Yeah. And there were good reasons behind collecting. Connecting with students is a great reason. Having a friend to share hobbies with. Those are all great reasons. You just have to do it in moderation. Right. And so it got to a point where we just said, okay, well, let's start organizing it a little bit more. But I think even then I was still collecting more than I should have or wanted to. Sure. And still kind of that FOMO feeling can creep in real easily when you want to, when you see something cool.
Well, the Pokemon Company is incredibly good at creating that feeling. Yeah. Their marketing and the way that they design sets and everything, like it's designed for you to want it and to feel like it has extreme value.
Yeah, they are great at understanding supply and demand, I'll tell you that.
Yes, and human psychology.
Yeah,
they're smart.
That's true.
And they've been in business for many years, so they know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And so I think finding that balance and meeting people, and Jake, you're one of them, where you start to learn you don't need to have that FOMO. You don't need to have a scarcity mindset. Yeah. Be intentional about what you're trying to collect. And so we switched to, like, my kids still have binders of just random cards that we still pull, and we'll still buy packs. But it's a lot more toned down and reasonable and intentional than it used to be. I'm not meeting with random strangers at a gas station at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Buying stacks of singles. Buying 10 ETBs out of their trunk. Yeah. I know exactly what that's like, man. And I appreciate you being so candid about, that journey because, and you and I talked about this off camera, but there seems to be kind of three main scenarios for people that get into Pokemon cards in the first place. Almost everyone starts out getting into it really hot out the gate. They buy all the cards. They start to plug into different parts of the community, whether it's through YouTube or through Instagram or even in person at their local game store or whatever it might be, card shows. And so they kind of develop an understanding of, okay, what do people want? What's cool? What's valuable? And that just triggers this like natural inclination that human beings have to kind of compare themselves to other people or compare themselves with what they want their future self to be like at the very least. And that results in usually buying too much too fast. And that can be a painful lesson to learn.
Yeah.
So maybe tell me, why do you feel it was so consuming at first for you, consuming of your time and your money?
I think just the idea that, I had to have every card that my students had and more.
Yeah.
And feeling like to be qualified to be their teacher and role model, I need to not only be that, but I need to have the Pokemon collection to match it. And
Interesting.
That is not real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because truth be told, a lot of them reignited their Pokemon because their teacher that they like,
Yeah, it's feedback loop.
yeah, is interested and they wanted to connect, and they're gonna have different Pokemon that they like. They're gonna have different chase cards, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I just felt the need that I needed to have it all, and I think I have a little bit of gambler's tendency as well, and think it would be better to just buy the pack and I could hit the big thing and then I'll trade it, but then I never trade it.
Right.
So I think just this idea that I needed to have the best within my realm of like collectors that I was sharing my collection with.
Very interesting.
And I would avoid actually going to local game stores because I would realize real quick when I get there, these other adults with money have way better collections than me.
Yeah, they've been in it for longer. They know more about whatever it is, and they have more expensive, more valuable, more rare cards.
Right, and I would just be like, I would enjoy it, but then I would go home like, dang, now I need to go and get that too.
Yeah.
And that wasn't authentic. It wasn't what I really wanted to do.
Right.
So it's kind of that, like, part of it is that authenticity, but then going too far and realizing that I kind of lost what I was trying to do with it, which is just to have fun with it.
Right.
And, re-engage that childhood memory of Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that, and then I don't know if I mentioned this as well, but I started my Instagram and called it PokePack Daily because I wanted to justify how much I was trying to rip and trying to open and trying to buy.
Right.
I'm like, oh, if I can, post a video and make it big like some of these influencers or something, it justifies the cost. And
right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it's so hard to get something to a point where it's feeding back into that hobby.
It is. And it takes a lot of time, and you're a family man and you have a job and all these things going on. And so it's not always realistic.
Yeah.
And I was kind of alluding at this, like, and you just touched on it as well, that people who kind of just get started in collecting, there's kind of three main paths, and they all come out of the gate hot, and either they kind of fizzle out and overspend, and then they're like, hey, collecting Pokemon is bad, and they just kind of leave the hobby, maybe to re-enter in and out for years down the road. There are people who take it seriously and maybe go that kind of business route where they, okay, let's do some social media and maybe let's do a little traveling, go to some bigger shows and try to either justify or actually, build a full-time business out of it, which I know is kind of a hot topic these days. People love to hear the idea of a Pokemon business.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, there's people who come out of the gate hot and then are able to pare it back and to develop these healthy, realistic collecting goals, learn how the market cycles and how the hype cycles move, and to not get captured by them, and to understand what's going on when, hey, maybe the newest set is 2 or 3 times MSRP. Maybe I won't get it right now. Or maybe if I do, I'll just get a little bit of it and be okay waiting until, there's a better opportunity to try it in the future if I want to. And you're kind of in that third camp, which is incredibly measured, very respectable. And, to kind of understand how you got to that point, at what point specifically was it that you realized that you were going too hard and you were spending too much time and or money?
When I noticed that it was affecting my real priorities, which was my family.
Okay.
When I realized that I would rather go out and spend $100 on a booster box,
right,
which was kind of what it was sometimes,
if
you were lucky, then, to buy $100 worth of toys for my kids.
Sure.
And that kind of shook me to think, wow, like I want my kids to have what they want. Like, sure, I'm the one working, right?
Sure.
But my priority is my family.
Yeah. You're working so that you can provide for your family.
Exactly. Like everything I do, whether it be finding a job that has more flexibility, whether it's, moving to certain places and things like that, is all because my very true priority is my family.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I realized it was just kind of like an aha moment, I guess, and I'm a millennial, so I see therapy frequently.
Yeah.
And so having a therapist kind of helped me realize that for myself was also really helpful. And just an amazing support group surrounding with people with that same mentality, you're going after the business right now.
Yeah.
You have that, personality, you have that ability. I like meeting the people. I'm not really business or entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's not one of the things that I authentically wanted to do.
Right.
Even though I was trying to, well, this is what everybody else is doing.
Right. Yeah.
So it comes back to what's authentic for me, and it's my family. And so what works for my family is this family binder. It's a Pokedex binder of, there's some bangers in there. There's the Lugia alt art.
Hey there. That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's also just random, like 5-cent cards.
Commons and uncommons. Yeah. Just whatever catches your eye and that you share kind of a love for with your children.
Right. And just connecting authentically.
Yeah.
Through the hobby.
I love it. I love it. So, we talked about how you got it to that point and started to make what you felt were wiser decisions about collecting and all of that. How exactly did you reel it in, right? Because it's kind of tough to go from buy all these nice new things and have packages arrive at the house all the time and be online buying things from streamers and meeting people at the gas station or Target to buy, whatever they have, to kind of, I'll just get a card here and there and put it in a binder and share that with my kids. Like, how did you reel it in? What was that process?
I think it goes back to being intentional about everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And being mindful of what you're trying to do. And so having specific goals. So with our Pokedex binder, we have some rules. We can't buy off of TCG Player. It cannot go into the binder if we bought it on eBay or TCG Player, because you can find every card on there.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to find it at a card show. So it makes us go out as a family to go hunt for this card.
Yep.
We have to open it in a pack.
Yep.
Or trade for it or something like that.
Right.
We have to actually catch that card out in the wild.
Right.
So, and I think that makes it so we're connecting. We know what our goals are. So my kids go and they're like, actually, you know what? I like this art better,
Yeah.
And
let's exchange it.
Yeah. Let's trade out something that we already have and let's put this one in our family binder. And they love looking through the binder every night. Like it's just like, hey, can we look through the Pokedex? Of course, I love it. And so it's super fun. And reeling it back, like Tracy, my wife, is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
She could have decided like, hey, this is ridiculous. You are a grown man. Why are you spending so much money on Pokemon in your childhood? But she was supportive and she said, let's do it and let's be intentional about it. Right. And let's make sure that we're not going crazy and we're being
It's classic careful. Tracy. Let's make a plan.
Yeah. Oh, and
I love it.
And she actually inspired, well, she didn't inspire me, more than she told me, to keep a spreadsheet.
Good.
And so I have a spreadsheet of the expenses. And so again, being mindful of how much has already gone out from my bank account instead of like, this is a good deal, I'm going to snag it.
Right.
Right. Like, I already got a good deal 2 weeks ago and spent this much money.
I love it. So. I love it. What's so funny about that, Bryson, is like those kind of guardrails that you put up for yourself and your kids in the way that you're collecting, it makes the whole journey more reminiscent of actually playing the Pokemon video game.
It does it.
Right? Like in the game, like you can't just go to the Rocket Game Corner and buy every Pokemon because you have infinite money. Like you have to go to the right place. You have to kind of get a little bit lucky on which card or which Pokemon's going to appear. You have to be ready and throw the Pokeball and everything like that. And that specific journey that you go on, of acquiring the Pokemon and then training it or trading it or putting it in the binder or whatever, that makes it more meaningful.
Yeah.
And it, in my experience, and maybe you feel the same way, that feeling of satisfaction and having an experience with the card or the item is more satisfying than having every possible card you could ever want.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
And you have to remind yourself that it's okay that that's more satisfying.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's like, well, this makes me really happy, but it's not the Umbreon VMAX Altar.
Right.
I don't have that card.
Right.
But it doesn't strike that much joy in me when I see it. Personally, I think it's a cool card. And I respect the chase with it for sure.
Yes.
But like another niche kind of thing is I collect Chinese cards.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's kind of blown up a little bit more lately.
Yeah.
But I like to collect because my family speaks Chinese. We like to collect Chinese cards.
Yeah.
And that's, if I take that to a game store, they're not going to take it in. They're going to be like, I can't sell this.
Right. They don't even know what it is or what it's worth or how to sell it.
So,
but you guys have an appreciation for it.
Right. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So, you now have these new goals, these new intentions, these new strategies on how you collect with the family. But then new sets come out. And, let's take, for example, Destined Rivals. There's some cool cards that have been released. The entire hobby, the whole community is kind of gearing up for what's inevitably going to be an expensive release.
Yeah.
How do you not FOMO and kind of fall back into making some of the decisions that you made before that weren't as wise based on what your goals are?
That's such a good question. I feel like, I did catch I wanted to be in line for the Pokemon Center. Yeah. Got in. Everything was sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I even had a couple of coworkers hop in and wait in the queue with me and just nothing. And that's okay. I think it's okay to experience that FOMO a little bit. Yeah. Because it reminds you that you still love the hobby and you love Pokemon. But I think realizing that I'm not trying to complete every master set, remembering what my goals are. And what I do is I'll look at the set when it's released and like what the actual art is. We'll kind of look at it together with my kids and be like, okay, which one are we trying to get now? Right. And, if it's, the Whale Lord, for example, that was fun for us. And
so that was one that you guys really wanted and you ended up pulling it out of a pack? Yes. See that kind of moment. Yeah. What doesn't happen if you're just like, okay, let's buy it on TCG Player or whatever.
Exactly. And so I haven't seen the set for Destined Rivals yet. I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, there's some leaks that came out today that are crazy. I'll show them to you.
Because I know Heat Wave Arena is out, so there's already some of those out. But I don't know, like deciding and knowing beforehand, because there's already leaks, right? Like you were mentioning, you can know what you're wanting to get before until you're prepared. Again, making that plan. Right. So I think that's how I kind of fight it. And there's just being grounded to your real values.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, Bryson, is because you now approach the hobby and the collecting with such a level head. And, despite huge opinions swirling around the community, once you kind of gain a little bit of experience and you've been there and done that, you can respond to those in a much more healthy and adult way. Yeah. And so I'm glad that I appreciate you sharing that story and how you kind of have pivoted over the past few years. So from that perspective, as a collector first, when it comes to Pokemon, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the hobby in general, and I kind of want to get your take on it. Sure. So number one is, just a generalized question. What's your take on the feeling and the temperament of the hobby and the Pokemon card collecting community right now?
I just assume goodwill all the time, and so I like to just see that this is something that can bring us together.
Yeah. Just
as a hobby. I think naturally we've seen some divide in the community.
Yeah.
And just, there's debates going on, and, because there's real money and
yes,
that's at stake. And I think it's a reminder of human nature, really.
Yeah.
That we can face kind of these things that maybe want to make us kind of argue or find reasons to jab at each other.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I was just at a friend's house, and he was ready to give me a card, and even when I came in, you were just so sweet, and you've probably seen it at shows with people wanting to just connect, and I think that's the core for me.
Yeah.
I think humanness and connection is going to go beyond any dollar value.
Yeah.
Personally. But I also understand that there's a business side to it.
Yeah.
And people need to make money. And so I always wish that there were more cards that people can open.
Yeah.
And that everybody can get their way. But it's at the end of the day up to us how we adjust.
Yeah.
Right? Like, would I want to open ETBs on ETBs of Prismatic because my daughter's favorite Pokemon is Eevee? Of course.
Yeah.
Did we end up actually only opening up maybe like an ETB and a poster collection? I think it was a poster collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We had the experience of opening, but we can pivot and adjust based on our plan. And I'm always hopeful with the Pokemon community at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna naturally go in ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it absolutely will. It's an example. It's just another place where human nature and now market nature can exist and take place, right? And in any other place, you're going to see good actors and you're going to see bad actors. You're going to see people who are in it for the long term. You're going to see people who are in it just to try to make a quick buck. And I don't think any of the bad actors are good enough reasons to not get involved, because you're going to find those in any community.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that take. Well, let's get more into the collecting piece and kind of talk about something that's a bit more whimsical.
Sure.
What's a card that you and your kids are chasing right now?
So the Maractus.
Okay. From
Journey Together.
Okay, so that's an art rare card.
Yes.
Nice.
So that is one that we're kind of looking for, because that's one of those Pokemon that you feel like is a little bit forgotten about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not necessarily one that hey, my favorite Pokemon's Maractus.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one that we're going for. I think we just got the Lycanroc. That's from that Journey Together set as
Beautiful
well. So
card.
A lot of those art rares are cards that we have decided that we like a lot.
Nice.
We also just like chubby Pokemon.
Sure. So. What about as far as in your binder right now? What's your favorite card that you guys have in there, and then what's your kid's favorite card?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Okay. In this binder, I have to say I actually really like. So Snorlax is my favorite Pokemon, but it is that Lugia V alt.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm unzipping this right now.
You should. We'll show it off. We will. We'll show it off.
So a lot of this is 151 because that's nostalgic and
it starts the Pokedex off.
Yes, and so it's kind of eye catching.
You guys have a ton in here.
Yeah, we have every Pokemon.
You already have every single one. And now you're just exchanging artworks?
Yeah, so it's mainly just focusing on the art that we want the most. So
wow.
This Lugia, the reason I really like it is because and the Whale Lord too.
Yes.
Because we actually pulled it. And like I go to shows and we can get them.
Yeah.
But like when it's a big chase card,
you got to keep
when it's the chase card.
Yeah.
And I pull it, it's a whole new.
So you pulled that out of a pack?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh my gosh.
A little while back.
I just remember sitting in the car. We had just bought like 5 Silver Tempest packs.
Yeah.
And I just like, Tracy. I just pulled it, and I remember being so happy. My kids' favorite Pokemon are Charmander and Eevee.
Okay.
Well, this Ninetales is gorgeous.
Yes.
Let's see. The Eevee we have here, I forgot what this set is. It's the one with a bunch of Eevees.
That's from set. Twilight Masquerade.
Twilight Masquerade, yeah. Yep. And so that one's fun for us.
We got all these Eevee promos from the V and V Max boxes.
So we liked those. Tracy picked those ones out. So yeah, that Eevee.
Yep.
But my little buddy loves the. Oh, we met up with some guy.
Got the Articuno.
Got that.
Oh, so nice.
And so we were lucky to get that Articuno.
This is so fun. This is so fun. And you can share it with your kids and everything.
It's a heavy binder. I took it into work today, and they were like, what is that? Let me show you.
It's my hobby. Yeah. I love it, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to have you on future episodes, and we can kind of talk about more current event stuff. But on the first episode with a new guest, I like to have people kind of share their background, and so that the audience can understand, where you're coming from.
Just a regular guy.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all approaching the hobby in different ways, and approaching the hobby in different ways is, that's healthy and that's normal.
Yeah.
Well, last thing is, if people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
Instagram, Pokepack Daily.
Okay.
I would love to connect with people through that.
Nice.
I think again, I love that community feeling. If you want to trade, I got other stuff than this, just from opening packs or from when I went crazy and bought a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and I just can't give it.
You have a few things left over.
And so Pokepack Daily, and I'll try to go to a couple of the local shows.
Yes.
And vend or even just show up.
Yeah.
Again, helping vend, I should say. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bryson. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we're friends, and I'm sure that we'll know each other and be collecting Pokemon for many years to come.
Forever.
Thanks, brother. Good to see you.